Hey, you. Yeah, you. With the tired eyes and the brave little hope that a story might do what sleep refuses to do. Welcome back. Set your shoulders down where they belong. Let your jaw unclench like it's finally getting permission. And if your brain is still sprinting in circles, that's fine. Let it run itself out while you stay right here with me. You step into a place that looks unreal in the way only ancient stone can. Rose-red canyon walls rising like quiet cathedrals, their surfaces striped with time, their curves softened by wind that never gets bored. The rock holds warmth from the day and releases coolness from its shaded seams, so every breath feels like the canyon is exhaling with you. Above, a slice of sky sits between towering cliffs, pale and distant, like it's trying not to interrupt. You probably won't survive this, meaning you won't survive pretending you can rush through a landscape like this and win. The canyon doesn't reward speed. It rewards listening. It rewards humility. It rewards the kind of patience you claim you have and then immediately abandon the moment your phone buzzes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been. Your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now, turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your tiredness melt away and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. Your feet find the canyon floor, packed sand, scattered pebbles, the occasional flat stone that feels cool even under late light. The air tastes faintly mineral, a little dusty, like the world's oldest library. As you move deeper, the rose-red cliffs shift in tone from sunlit blush to shaded ember, and the shadows begin to gather themselves in long, soft ribbons. And then you notice them. Not with a dramatic reveal, no sudden music cue, no heroic silhouette, just the steady presence where the canyon widens near a cluster of caves. Bedouin traders settled into the shade as if the rock itself invited them to. Their movements are unhurried, practical, the kind that says they've done this for centuries and see no reason to stress now. Textiles are folded with careful corners. Pack ropes are checked with fingers that know tension by feel. Goods sit in neat bundles, leather, cloth, small carved objects, sealed containers that promise water or oil, or something precious enough to keep out of the sun. You don't stride in like you own the place because you have basic survival instincts and also because the canyon would laugh at you. You approach in the way the land encourages, slow, observant, respectful. Your gaze drops briefly, not submissive, just mindful. Your hands stay visible. Your body language speaks a quiet sentence. I am not here to take. I am here to pass through. One of the traders looks up. Their face is weathered in the gentle way, like sun and wind have written a biography on their skin without being cruel about it. Their eyes read you quickly. Your thirst, your fatigue, your city-bred habit of carrying tension in your neck like it's a fashionable scarf. You feel seen, which is always slightly alarming. They gesture toward shade. It's not a command, not a performance, just the simple ancient logic of hospitality in a harsh place. The gesture says, if you are here, you sit. If you sit, you rest. If you rest, you might live. And honestly, you're not in a position to argue with that kind of math. You step under the cave's mouth, where the temperature drops like a blessing. The rock overhead is smooth in some places, rough in others, shaped by time and touch. In the cave's dimness, the rose-red outside becomes a framed painting, and your eyes adjust to the softer light. The air smells faintly of wool, leather, and something herbal, like crushed leaves or dried flowers tucked into fabric to keep insects away. It's the scent of practical care. You settle where they indicate. Not sprawled, not rigid, just contained. Your breathing slows without you forcing it. The canyon silence isn't empty, it's full of tiny sounds you normally miss. Sand shifting under a foot, fabric whispering as someone adjusts a wrap, the distant scrape of wind along stone. Even your heartbeat seems louder here, like the cave is politely making you aware of yourself. You notice the details because your mind finally has room. A woven rug with patterns that feel like they were designed to be remembered. A bundle tied with a knot so clean it's almost beautiful. A small pouch with beads, maybe for counting, maybe for prayer, or maybe for keeping hands busy while waiting. A water skin placed carefully in the shade, not on the hot ground, because waste is unforgivable out here. You feel the first wave of relief, and it almost annoys you how quickly you trust it. But the body is honest. The body knows when it's safe enough to stop clenching. In the half-light, they go about their tasks while still including you in the orbit of their attention. Someone checks the canyon path behind you, not suspiciously, just responsibly. Someone else adjusts a load strap, tightening it with the easy strength of repetition. A length of cloth is shaken out, inspected for grit, folded again with care. Everything is calm. Everything is deliberate. No one moves like time is chasing them, because in this place, time isn't the predator. Dehydration is. You're offered water not in abundance, not as a dramatic pouring out. A small, controlled portion, held out with the kind of respect that makes you understand it's not charity, it's balance. It's the social contract of survival. Today for you, tomorrow for someone else. Always within limits. You accept in the same spirit, taking what's given without greed, letting the water touch your lips like a promise rather than a solution. It's cool but not icy. It tastes faintly of leather and earth. It tastes like it had to be carried, guarded, deserved. You swallow slowly because your throat wants to gulp, and the wiser part of you, newly awake, remembers that rushing anything in this canyon is a form of disrespect, even drinking. The cave holds you while the outside light changes. The canyon walls shift again, from ember to rose red to something almost purple where shadows deepen. The sky slice above becomes softer, dimmer, as if the day is lowering its voice too. You begin to understand, without anyone explaining it outright, that you have stepped into a world where welcome is not loud, it's not performative, it's not wrapped in endless words. It's a place where presence is enough, where being allowed into shade is an act of care, and where the rock itself feels like part of the community, protecting, cooling, sheltering. And as you sit there, finally still, you realize the canyon isn't just rose red. It's layered, it's patient, It's been waiting for you to stop pretending you can handle everything alone. The first thing you learn, without anyone spelling it out, is that hospitality here is not a sloppy open-door buffet where you wander around grabbing whatever feels comforting. Hospitality is precise. It is generous with boundaries. It is warmth with a spine. You sit in the cave's cooled belly and watch how the space is organized like a living map. The entrance is not just an entrance, it is a threshold where the outside heat gets politely asked to lower its voice. The deeper shade is reserved for what must be protected: water, goods, and the fragile human parts of a day. The ground is layered with textiles that are not decoration, but design. Rugs placed to soften stone, to keep dust down, to mark where bodies belong. Everything has a reason. Even the empty spaces are intentional, like pauses in a song. A soft glow lives inside the cave. Not a flickering bonfire, not smoke crawling along the ceiling, not drama. Just a steady light, low and careful, lamps cupped to protect their flame, or coals banked and buried so they hold heat without shouting about it. It's firelight without flames, the kind of light that feels like someone covered the sun with their hand so your eyes can finally rest. The rock catches it and warms into color, turning the cave walls from dull shadow into a quiet spectrum: russet, rose, deep amber, like the canyon is remembering itself. Your body wants to expand into the comfort. Your nervous system, bless its exhausted little heart, starts making plans to sprawl. But you notice how everyone else sits, contained, balanced, aware. No one stretches out in a way that claims the floor. No one plants themselves in the center like a monument. Even rest has manners here. You adjust without announcing it. You fold your legs more neatly. You keep your shoes where they won't dirty the textiles. You become aware of your feet, your hands, the direction of your body. It's not that you're afraid of offending anyone, it's that you finally understand this is shared shelter, not private luxury. The canyon isn't a hotel room, it's a life support system. You watch how objects are handled. A water skin isn't tossed, it's placed. A bundle isn't kicked aside, it's lifted and moved with care. Ropes are coiled with the kind of focus that makes you realize carelessness is expensive here. In a city, you can drop a thing, break a thing, replace a thing, shrug, and keep walking. In a canyon, dropping a thing can become a story that ends badly. Even the way attention moves feels different. In the world you come from, attention is a spotlight, bright, impatient, always hunting for the next problem. Here, attention is a lantern. It sweeps slowly, checking corners, noticing changes. Someone's gaze flicks to the canyon opening every so often, not paranoid, just practical. Someone else checks the seam of a cloth as if reading it. You sense that your presence is included in this awareness, not as a threat, not as entertainment, just as a fact to be accounted for. You feel an odd relief in that. Being accounted for is quieter than being judged. It means you exist in the system, and the system has a place for you. You pick up more rules by watching than you ever could by asking. You notice that gratitude is shown through restraint. You don't take more water just because you want it. You don't reach for goods out of curiosity. You don't point like you're narrating a documentary. You let your eyes be curious without letting your hands become greedy. It's a hard habit to learn, especially for modern humans who treat interest as a license to touch everything, but you manage, barely. Your fingertips twitch once and you pull them back like a child caught near a cake. There's a rhythm to offering and receiving. Things are presented in a way that gives the receiver dignity. Nothing is shoved into you, nothing is withheld to create suspense. It's simple. An item appears, you accept what is meant for you, and you do it calmly. The calm is part of the payment. Your frantic gratitude is not required. Your drama is not useful. Your respect is enough. The cave itself teaches you boundaries too. It holds sound differently. A small movement can scrape loud. A careless shift can scatter grit. You begin to move like you're carrying a bowl of water inside your chest and you don't want to spill it. You set things down softly. You adjust cloth slowly. You breathe through your nose because the air feels cleaner that way, and because mouth breathing in dusty places is a rookie mistake you don't want to add to your biography. Time stretches, but it doesn't feel like boredom. It feels like permission. You realize how rarely you are permitted to do nothing without guilt. Here, doing nothing is a skill. It keeps you cool, it keeps your heart from racing, it keeps your water inside you, where it belongs. The glow from the sheltered light makes everything look gentler than it is. You remember that the canyon outside is still vast and indifferent. You remember the taste of that precious water and the way your throat tried to rush it. You remember the trader's hands, steady and practiced, and you begin to understand that welcome is not only comfort, it is instruction. And somewhere in the quiet, you accept the simplest rule of all. If you want to be cared for in a harsh place, you must learn how to be careful, too. The cave's calm doesn't make you forget thirst. It just makes you notice it honestly. In the city, thirst is a mild inconvenience you solve with a plastic bottle and a careless gulp. Here, it's a quiet ruler pressed against everything you do. It measures how far you can walk, how fast you should move, how loudly you can panic before you waste yourself. You watch the traders treat water the way people elsewhere treat gold, handled with clean intentions, stored with intelligence, shared with rules. The water skin you tasted earlier sits where the cave shadow is deepest, cradled in folded cloth and lifted off the warm ground. Someone checks the tie, not because they doubt it, but because the habit of checking is what keeps small failures from turning into disasters. Containers are opened only long enough to do what needs doing, then sealed again. A cup is rinsed with a thin pour and turned upside down to dry. A damp cloth is pressed and wrung carefully, and the leftover moisture isn't dismissed as used up. It cools a forehead. It wipes grit from a knife. It settles dust on the cave floor so breathing stays easy. You realize water isn't only for drinking, it's for staying human. Because it does so many jobs, it has to be scheduled. Not in a spreadsheet way. No one here is color-coding hydration, but in a rhythm that lives in muscle memory. When water is offered, you take a small sip and let it sit on your tongue. You swallow slowly. Your stomach complains like a spoiled child, but your body recognizes the relief of not flooding itself. Coolness travels down your throat in a quiet line instead of a greedy rush, and your breathing steadies. Outside the cave, the rose-red rock continues to glow, but you start to see a different color in your mind, the imagined blue of hidden water. The traders know where it gathers, where it seeps, where it pretends to be absent while quietly existing. Their attention touches certain cracks in stone, certain bends where shade lingers longer, certain pockets of cooler air that signal something living underneath. When the time comes to check water points, it isn't a dramatic march. It's a calm walk along the canyon floor, where your feet learn the difference between soft sand that steals energy and firmer ground that returns it. Shade becomes a route choice, not a coincidence. You move from shadow to shadow, the way a careful person crosses a road, not trying to prove anything, just trying to arrive. You come to a place where the canyon wall dips inward, forming a pocket of coolness. In the stone, there's evidence of human patience. A shallow basin smoothed over years, a catchment that gathers what the sky gives when it feels generous. There is no rushing stream. This is the desert's version of abundance, a small, reliable holding protected from sun and wind. The water surface is dark and still, reflecting a thin slice of sky like a secret kept on purpose. The discipline around it is immediate and quiet. Hands are clean before touching anything that will be shared. The lip of a container is wiped before sealing. No one coughs over the water. No one lets stray sand drift in. You suddenly understand how sickness could move through a group out here like fire, and how cleanliness is not a luxury, but a shield. You mirror their caution without being asked, turning your face away when you clear your throat, keeping your fingers to yourself, respecting the boundary between need and waste. Timing is another kind of water. There are moments when the air is kinder, early light and late light, when bodies lose moisture and walking costs less. The day bends around those moments. When the sun is highest, you don't prove yourself by suffering. You hide. You rest. You let shade do its job, because pride is heavy and it makes you sweat. Back at the caves, you notice small tricks that make a difference. A thin layer of cloth is wrapped around a container so evaporation can steal heat. A damp textile is placed where air moves, then shifted again before it dries stiff. When you hold a cooled container, the chill is subtle, like a whisper against your palm. But in this canyon, subtle is the whole point. Tiny advantages, stacked carefully, become survival. By evening, your relationship with thirst has changed. It stops being a frantic craving and becomes a clear signal, answered with respect. You drink when it's offered, you stop when it's enough, and you feel something unfamiliar. Trust. Not in endless supply, not in comfort, but in the idea that you can last if you move like they move, calmly, cleanly, and with restraint that looks boring right up until it saves your life. The canyon walls deepen into purple shadow, and you return to the cave carrying the softest kind of gratitude, quiet, contained, and careful not to spill a single drop of it. You start to notice that the traders don't wear clothes so much as they wear architecture. In the cave's softened light, fabric isn't fashion, and it isn't a costume for visitors who want to feel dramatic for 5 minutes. Cloth is shade you can carry. It's insulation against heat and chill, a filter for dust, a quiet sign of respect, and, most importantly, an instruction manual you can wrap around your own impatience. You watch how they adjust themselves before moving out again. Nothing is yanked into place. Everything is settled, layered, and tested with small, practiced tugs. A head covering sits not tight, not loose, but exactly right. Enough to hold against wind, enough to breathe. A long outer layer drapes to keep sun off skin without trapping heat. Sleeves fall over wrists. Fabric overlaps at the neck like a shield, because the sun loves the tender spots you forget exist until they're burning. You, meanwhile, are a modern creature, trained to treat discomfort as a personal insult. You have probably walked into summer wearing whatever looked good in a mirror, then acted surprised when the weather behaved like weather. Here, you don't get to negotiate with physics. The canyon doesn't care about your vibe. A folded cloth is offered for you to use, not luxury, more like a gentle correction. You take it and feel the texture. Sturdy, breathable, worn soft by time. When you lay it over your head, the shade is immediate, like someone dimmed the world by one setting. The heat doesn't vanish, it just stops pressing its face against your skin. That alone feels like a small miracle. You learn to leave air between cloth and body. Tight is for cities where air conditioning waits around the corner. Loose is for deserts, where moving air is your friend, and sweat needs room to evaporate. The trick isn't to fight perspiration, but to manage it. Let it cool you instead of letting it drain you. You remember the careful sips of water and realize clothing is part of that same discipline. Every bead of sweat is a tiny payment. The goal is to pay as little as possible. Then there's posture. You notice how they carry their bodies. Shoulders low, spine long, head balanced. Their steps are measured, neither stomping nor tiptoeing. Even turning seems economical, as if every movement is weighed against the cost of effort. You try it, and immediately discover that your usual way of walking is basically a tantrum. Your pace is too fast. Your breath sits too high with that anxious "I'm fine" inhale that isn't fine at all. So you soften. You drop your shoulders. You let your breath slow until it matches the canyon's tempo. In through the nose, out through the mouth, quiet as possible. When you move slower, you notice more, and noticing is half the skill here. Shade becomes a route, not an accident. As you step out, you see how the traders choose their line through the canyon, hugging the wall where shadow clings, crossing open stretches efficiently, pausing where a boulder throws a wide patch of coolness. They don't fight the sun head-on, they outwit it. They treat light like terrain. You try it. You move from shadow to shadow, letting your skin cool in each pocket before continuing. The temperature difference is small but real. Your mouth stops drying quite so fast. Your pulse doesn't climb as quickly. You begin to understand why rest isn't laziness here. It's strategy. In a place where water is wealth, you don't spend it on unnecessary motion. Your feet join the lesson. The canyon floor shifts from sand to stone to pebbled patches that roll underfoot. You notice how they step, placing the foot, feeling the ground, transferring weight quietly. It's not delicate, it's smart. It keeps ankles safe. It keeps energy from leaking away. You start doing it and realize how often you used to slam your body into the earth like an argument. Late afternoon deepens the rose-red walls into ember tones. Dust in the air catches the slanting light and looks almost golden, like the canyon is decorating itself for evening. Your cloth shade turns everything softer, more manageable, as if the world has lowered its voice again. When you return to the cave mouth, cool air pours out to meet you, and you realize something quietly astonishing. You didn't push through, you didn't conquer anything, You simply moved the way the land requires. Slow, covered, and respectful. And the land responded by not punishing you. Humbling, soothing, annoyingly effective. And somewhere in that slower rhythm, you feel your thoughts unclench, one careful step at a time. The cave's coolness still clings to your skin as you drift back toward the entrance, cloth shades still in place. The canyon doesn't reward bravado. It rewards restraint, planning, and the unglamorous habit of not wasting yourself. The traders shift from resting into preparation, and it happens so quietly you almost miss the moment it begins. Hands move, bundles appear. Rope is uncoiled and laid out in clean lines on the rug, as if even cords deserve respect. There's no fuss, just the calm certainty of people who know a journey starts long before the first step. Outside, waiting in the shade beyond the cave mouth, camels kneel with the patient dignity that makes your modern urgency feel a little embarrassing. Their long lashes blink against dust and light. Pack frames rest nearby, and you realize the caravan you pictured is not romance. It's a system with rules, and the rules are written in weight. Loading begins like a quiet puzzle. Heavy goods sit low, centered, balanced so the animal carries the load without being twisted by it. Softer bundles cushion sharper ones. Straps cross in deliberate patterns, not random crisscrossing you'd trust to luck. Someone runs fingers along a rope, as if reading it, feeling for grit, weakness, fray. Friction, you learn, is an enemy that never looks dramatic until the moment it wins. A bundle is placed near you, and a rope end is left within reach. You're included without being made into a show. No one congratulates you for having thumbs. You simply become another set of hands, and that feels oddly soothing. You take the rope and understand immediately that rope is not just rope. It has texture, memory, a truth you can feel through your fingertips. Your first knot looks confident in the way bad decisions often do. It sits too proud, too tight in the wrong place, too loose in the right one. You stop, breathe, and try again. Slower, flatter, cleaner. You keep the loops even. You pull until the bundle holds, then stop just before you crush what's inside. The knot settles, and the rope goes quiet, as if it approves. This is caravan logic. Everything is checked twice, and nothing is left to mood. While the loads take shape, route planning happens without any maps unrolled, because the land itself is their paper. Someone stands at the cave mouth and studies the canyon like a sentence that can't be rushed. They watch where shadow lies along the wall and where light will strike hardest later. They notice wind combing patterns into sand. They take in narrowing bends and wider pockets where you can rest without being roasted. You start to see that a route is not a straight line. It's a chain of decisions. Markers are subtle. A certain notch in the clef, a pale seam in the stone that catches evening light, a cluster of rocks that looks accidental until you realize it's been nudged into meaning. Even the air gives hints. Cooler near a hidden crack, dustier where the ground loosens, quieter where the walls close in and swallow sound. Even time is part of the packing. Movement is prepared for the hours when heat is less arrogant. Rest is planned for the hours when the sun is at its loudest. Nobody tries to prove anything. Pride is heavy. It makes you sweat. Signals move through the group with almost no sound. A tilt of the head sends someone toward the animals. A palm held low slows the pace of work. Two fingers flick toward a bundle, and it shifted a few inches to balance the weight. A short tug on a strap means yes. Another tug means wait. You begin to understand why sound costs energy, and in a narrow canyon it also travels. Valuables disappear without vanishing. Small items are wrapped in cloth, then wrapped again, then placed deep within larger bundles, cushioned by textiles and wool. It isn't secrecy for its own sake, it's competence. The desert takes what you leave exposed, so protection is built into order. Nothing flashy, just reliable. As the last ropes are checked, the cave feels less like a shelter and more like a staging ground. Your thoughts, which usually swarm when you're tired, start lining up behind simple tasks. Hold the rope, place the knot, check the strap, breathe, don't waste. Someone briefly presses a palm to the canyon wall near the entrance. Not a performance, more like acknowledgement. The rock has cooled you. The rock has held you. The rock will watch you leave. You step out into the rose-red light again, cloth shade steady, water discipline intact, and a new understanding settling into your chest like a well-tied knot. A caravan doesn't survive by being fearless. It survives by being organized. You follow the slow pulse of activity outward from the cave mouth, and the canyon reveals a smaller world tucked inside its larger silence. A trading cluster that looks temporary at first glance, like someone could fold it up and walk away with it, but feels deeply practiced the moment you notice the details. Rugs are laid where the ground is flattest, not for decoration, but because sand is a thief of small things. Low bundles sit in tidy rows, each wrapped in cloth that's been tied and retied so many times the folds remember the shape of the contents. Containers are grouped by shade preference, some tucked deeper under rock, some set where a thin breeze can pass over them. You realize the market isn't a row of stalls with loud signs. It's an arrangement of trust and caution, built from textile, rope, and routine. The air changes as you step into it. The cave had smelled like wool and leather and quiet. Here, scent has layers, soft sweetness, sharp spice, resinous depth, like the canyon is wearing perfume in a sensible way, not a desperate one. The rose-red stone around you almost seems to intensify the aromas, warming them just enough to make them bloom. You notice rose first, because it's the gentlest, not a sugary, modern candle version of rose, but something dry and real, petals stored for later, crushed into powder, tucked into cloth to keep insects away, steeped into water when water can spare it. The scent clings to your fingers even though you're trying very hard to be the kind of guest who looks with their eyes and not with their hands. It isn't easy. Your curiosity keeps leaning forward like a toddler. Nearby, resin sits sealed in small lumps and shards that catch light like amber. It has that clean, ancient smell, sharp at first, then warm, then soothing, like the air itself is being washed. You recognize it not by name, but by memory, the way temples and old rooms sometimes smell, the way certain oils make a space feel calmer even before your brain has decided you deserve calm. Resin is the kind of trade good that travels well, keeps well, and carries meaning with it. It's practical and spiritual at the same time, which is annoyingly efficient. Then there are spices, little piles and tiny packets that look modest until you remember how far taste has to travel to reach a desert cave. Dark seeds that smell like warmth, pale powders that lift into the air if you breathe too close. Threads of color that look like someone stole sunset and tried to hide it in a pouch. Some scents prickle your nose awake. Others settle into your chest like a slow exhale. Your hunger, which had been quiet under all that careful water discipline, wakes up politely and waits its turn. The traders handle everything the way they handle water, with respect, with restraint, with a quiet awareness of cost. A pinch is measured. A container is closed immediately. Items are shown, not flaunted. The whole scene feels like a lesson in economy. Not just money economy, but movement economy, attention economy, breath economy. Even scent is managed, because scent means openness, and openness invites insects, dust, and unwanted interest. You start to understand how stories move through objects. A dyed textile isn't just pretty, it's proof of a plant that grew somewhere else, of water used somewhere else, of hands working somewhere else. A strip of leather isn't just leather, it's a life, a craft, and the knowledge of how to keep it from cracking in heat. A small carved piece, stone, bone, wood, carries the shape of the canyon in miniature, as if the place is willing to be carried away in a pocket. And you, standing there, with your borrowed cloth shade and your newly humble posture, realize you're not only looking at goods, you're looking at distance made tangible. Trade here isn't loud bargaining or theatrical gestures. It's a quiet reading of value. Weight is assessed in the hand. Texture is checked with fingertips that know what honest material feels like. The balance between giving and keeping is maintained with the same calm that kept you from gulping water earlier. You can almost feel the invisible calculations. How much can be spared? What must be preserved? What is worth carrying across heat and stone? You keep seeing small signs of protection. The most precious things are wrapped twice, then placed within other things, not because anyone is paranoid, but because the world is. Pouches are tied and retied with knots that sit flat and strong. A bundle is never left unattended on the edge of shade where a passing stranger could accidentally drift too near. You remember the rope in your hands earlier and how a sloppy knot felt like an insult to gravity. Here, a sloppy knot is worse. It's an insult to survival. The canyon itself participates in the market. Rock alcoves become shelves. Narrow ledges become places to tuck containers so they stay cool. The wind comes through certain corridors like a regular customer, lifting scents and carrying them across rugs, mixing rose with resin, spice with dust, until the whole space feels gently alive. Overhead, the strip of sky shifts toward late light, and the rose-red walls deepen, as if the canyon is leaning in to listen. You catch yourself feeling something unexpected, steadiness. Your mind, which is usually crowded with noise, starts to focus on simple sensory truths. The feel of woven fibers under your palm. The way a resin scent clears your head without jarring you awake. The warm prickle of spice in your nose. The visual calm of bundles lined up like patient animals, each one ready to travel, each one carrying someone's plan. And somewhere in that calm, you notice a particular bundle, small, carefully wrapped, placed a little deeper in shade than the rest. It isn't labeled, it isn't announced, but your attention lingers on it, the way your body lingers on water. You don't reach for it, you don't even lean too close. You simply register it as important, the way you register a narrow ledge as dangerous. You let the moment pass. You let the market scent settle over you like a blanket that smells of rose and stone and faraway roads. And as you drift back toward the cave's cool mouth, you carry the strangest souvenir already, the understanding that value isn't shouted here. It's wrapped carefully, tied cleanly, and kept in the shade. Night arrives the way this canyon does everything, slowly, on purpose, with zero interest in your schedule. The rose-red walls fade into dark wine, and the last heat slips off the rock in soft breaths. The air that smelled of rose and resin and spice a while ago turns cleaner, stone, dust, and the faint animal warmth of resting pack beasts. You stay at the cave mouth, half in shade, half under sky. Your cloth shade still covers your head and shoulders. In daylight, it was protection from the sun's rude enthusiasm, and now it becomes insulation, holding a pocket of warmth while the night cools the sand outside. The traders keep their movements low and economical. Bundles are tucked deeper into darkness. Straps are checked by feel. A small sheltered light glows without flaring, because bright flame is a declaration, and the desert doesn't reward declarations. Everything is set as if wind might reach in and rearrange it, which, honestly, it would. You settle onto a rug near the entrance and let your spine soften. You don't collapse dramatically, you simply stop fighting the ground. Your breathing slows into the same pace you've been practicing since you learned not to gulp water like your throat is filing a complaint. In here, calm isn't a mood, it's a method. Above the canyon's narrow strip of sky, stars appear. One, then several, then a sudden scatter that makes your city memories feel slightly embarrassing. The Milky Way shows itself as a pale band, like flour dusted over black cloth. You stare, and your mind tries to grab a label, a fun fact, a clever comment. Then you remember, out here the sky isn't entertainment, it's information. You try to make it practical because your brain loves pretending it's useful. You pick out a star that seems stubbornly fixed, almost pinned, and you keep returning to it the way you keep returning to the water discipline you learned earlier. Small checks, steady habits. You practice turning your head, then finding it again, using the cliff edge as a frame so you don't drift. It's humbling how quickly certainty dissolves when every shadow looks similar, and how quickly a person can waste energy just by walking in unnecessary circles. You let the lesson settle. Choose a reference, keep it, and don't let impatience steer. You notice how the traders look up, quick, calm, exact. A glance, a quiet confirmation, and their eyes return to the canyon. You copy them. You pick a bright point and hold it against the cliff's edge, watching it stay steady while others drift. Direction settles into your body as a sensation. This way is true, without any screen chirping in your ear. The wind joins the lesson, sliding through the canyon like a careful guest. It changes its voice when the walls narrow, speeds up in tight corridors, softens in wide pockets. You start to hear warnings in it. A sudden swirl means a bend, a pocket, sand that will steal your footing. Cloth edges flutter and settle, and you realize even fabric can be a compass if you stop treating it like decoration. Cold gathers first in low places, Warmth lingers where rock has stored it. You feel the night pooling along the canyon floor and understand why caves and overhangs matter. It isn't romance. It's physics, offered in small portions. Silence does the rest. In it, you hear the small truths. A camel shifting weight, a rope creaking up, a pebble tapping down a slope somewhere far. You hear your own swallow. You hear your thoughts arrive. Still tired, still messy, but less sharp. In this hush, awareness isn't anxiety. It's simply listening for what changes. You lean back slightly, letting your shoulders sink into woven fibers. The canyon frames the sky like a window cut by patient hands. The cliffs that were rose red now look nearly black at their edges, and the stars shine harder against that darkness. You feel small, but in a gentle way, like your worries finally step aside and let the universe take a turn speaking. The night teaches you without words. Move when the air is kind. Rest when it isn't. Watch the stars. Feel the wind. Respect the silence. Tie your life down with clean knots and drink your water like it's worth something. Because it is. You let that knowledge settle the way cool air settles in the cave, quietly, completely. Your eyelids grow heavy, not from boredom, but from safety. The trader's steady presence holds the night in place. The cave holds the cool. The sky holds its shining map. And as you keep your gaze upward a moment longer, you accept the simplest truth of all. Guidance is always available here. It just refuses to shout. Hunger arrives gently, almost politely, like it doesn't want to be a burden. It starts as a hollow softness under your ribs, then sharpens when the air cools and your body remembers it's supposed to keep itself alive. The canyon night has a way of making basic needs feel honest. You can't distract yourself with screens, noise, or the strange modern hobby of pretending you're fine. The traders begin preparing a meal with the same quiet competence you've watched in everything else. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is wasted. The kitchen is a small zone in the cave where the air can move, but the wind can't steal heat. A low light glows close to the ground, sheltered so it doesn't flare. Someone lays a flat surface, stone or board, then wipes it carefully, as if cleanliness is a form of respect, because it is. The first scent that lifts is warm and comforting, something grain-based, something simple. You don't need a menu. Your body recognizes it as food you can trust. There's a rhythm to the preparation, hands measuring by feel, not by obsession, tools placed down the same way every time, water used sparingly, only where it matters. You watch how even a rinse is strategic. A small pour cleans, then the leftover dampness is used to wipe, then the cloth is wrung and saved. Out here, the smallest drips are given a job. You're included again in that quiet orbit, not forced, not singled out, just gently pulled into usefulness. You take on a small task, holding a container steady, passing a tool, keeping a cloth out of dust, and you feel the relief of being part of a system where your contribution doesn't need applause. You don't have to perform gratitude with big gestures. You just need to be careful. And careful, you're learning, is a kind of gratitude in action. Food appears in humble forms that feel almost luxurious in their simplicity. A warm flatbread-like thing, cooked in a way that makes the surface smell faintly toasted. A small portion of something rich, oil maybe, or a spread, offered in controlled amounts, because richness is precious and should be treated as such. A handful of dried fruit or nuts that crunch softly and wake your senses without turning you fully alert. The flavors are quiet but deep, like the canyon itself, not flashy, but lasting. You eat slowly, not because you're pretending to be refined, but because you've learned that rushing is a kind of disrespect to water, to heat, to the body, to the people who carried this food here. Each bite is small, purposeful. You chew until the texture softens and the taste opens. You swallow without urgency. Your stomach relaxes as if it's been holding its breath all day. You notice how the group eats. There's no hoarding, no frantic grabbing, no silent competition. Portions are measured in a way that keeps everyone steady. The youngest or the most tired receive a little more at the right moment, not as charity, but as investment in the group's strength. Someone pauses to wipe hands before touching shared food again. Someone else uses cloth to keep grit from blowing onto the meal. Someone else tilts their body to block a faint draft. Every small act says the same thing. We protect what keeps us alive. The canyon low light makes faces softer, shadows gentler. The world outside is black now, but the inside feels like a pocket of warm breathing. You listen to the tiny sounds of eating, bread tearing, a cup set down, a soft exhale after swallowing. And it's strangely soothing. There's no talking, no story being told aloud, and yet the whole moment feels full of meaning, like you're hearing a language made of habit and care. After food, a small ritual of settling happens. Tools are cleaned immediately. Leftovers are wrapped carefully and placed where they'll stay cool. Nothing is abandoned for later in the lazy way you might at home, because later is when insects arrive, or dust settles, or heat ruins what could have fed someone tomorrow. Later is a luxury word. Here, the present handles its responsibilities. A drink comes, warm, aromatic, not too much, something herbal maybe, steeped briefly so it gives comfort without demanding resources. The scent is soft, like a hand on your forehead. You sip, and your body loosens another notch. You feel heat in your core, but not the aggressive heat of the day. This is gentle warmth, held close, safe. Your gaze drifts to the canyon opening. Stars still shine in that thin strip of sky. The cliffs stand like silent guardians. You feel the day's lessons sitting inside you now. Drink slowly, move gently, respect shade, tie clean knots, listen to wind. And you realize the meal is part of that same education. It teaches you that safety isn't only shelter. Safety is also routine. Safety is knowing what happens next. Safety is hands that don't tremble when they portion food because they've learned not to fear scarcity by pretending it doesn't exist. Your eyelids grow heavier again the way they did under the stars. You finish your last bite, wipe your hands carefully, and settle back. The cave holds you. The trader's calm holds you. The simple meal holds your body in a steadier, warmer place. And for the first time in a long time, you feel something close to being looked after, without words, without fuss, without any need to earn it through suffering. After the last warmth of the meal settles in your stomach, the cave becomes even more than shelter. It becomes a small, living rule book, one written in gestures, placements, pauses, and the way people look away at the right time. You lie back, not fully asleep, letting your eyes drift between the low glow inside and the stars slice outside. The canyon is still, but your mind is quietly busy, collecting patterns. You begin to notice the customs that hold this group together as tightly as any rope knot you practiced earlier, maybe tighter. Rope can fray. People can't afford to. The first custom is simple. You don't take space like you own it. You've already felt it in your body, the way everyone sits contained, the way shoes and tools are placed carefully, the way even resting has manners. Now you understand why. Space in a cave is not neutral. It's comfort, it's safety, it's temperature control. When you claim too much, you force someone else into draft or grit or cold rock. So you keep your limbs tidy, you shift gently. You learn to move like you're sharing air with someone who matters. The second custom is quieter. You accept care without turning it into a performance. Earlier, the water was offered in a measured portion, and your throat had tried to gulp like a panicked creature. You learned restraint. Now you learned something adjacent, dignity. When something is offered, you receive it calmly, with eyes lowered for a beat, not as submission, but as respect. You don't dramatize your gratitude. You don't make a speech. You don't force the giver to hold your emotions. You simply take what is meant for you, and you carry it well. And then, this is the part modern life forgets. You return care back into the system. Not immediately with gifts, because that would turn hospitality into a transaction, and that's not the point. You return it through attention, through small acts, through washing your hands before touching shared things, through lifting a rug edge so sand can be shaken out, through noticing a strap sitting twisted and smoothing it before it wears through, through not leaving your own mess for later, because later is when the desert collects debts. The cave becomes a classroom for boundaries too. You realize there are invisible lines you do not cross, not because anyone threatens you, but because crossing them would damage the fabric of belonging. Certain bundles sit deeper in shade for a reason. Certain containers are placed apart. Certain tools are handled by certain hands, not out of hierarchy, but out of habit and responsibility. You remember the small, carefully wrapped bundle you noticed near the scented trade goods, and you understand why your curiosity had to stay polite. Here, interesting is not permission. Even your gaze learns boundaries. You look without staring. You observe without consuming. You let people keep their privacy the way you let water keep its place in a sealed skin. Your attention becomes softer, less grabby, more respectful. And somehow, in that softness, you see more clearly. As night deepens, you witness something like a blessing. No speeches, no ceremony that demands your participation. Just a moment of intention that drifts through the cave like warm air. A hand touches the rock briefly. A small motion of the palm. A pause. A breath. You sense that gratitude here isn't shouted upward. It's pressed quietly into what sustains you. Stone, shade, water, animals, each other. You feel yourself wanting to name it, to label it, to translate it into your own categories. But you don't. You let it remain itself. That too is a boundary. the humility of not forcing everything into your language. Belonging starts to sneak up on you in practical ways. Someone shifts a folded cloth closer to where you're lying so the draft doesn't reach your neck. No one makes a show of it. It's done the way you tighten a knot, silently, correctly. Someone nudges your water portion to a safer spot where it won't warm too fast. Someone sets a small bundle of fabric near your side. Not a gift in the dramatic sense, more like an unspoken suggestion that you are expected to stay and be comfortable within the rules. And the rules themselves stop feeling like restrictions. They start feeling like care, shaped into structure. You notice how the group protects each other from embarrassment, too. No one watches you too closely when you adjust your cloth shade. No one hovers while you settle your legs. If you make a small mistake, placing something in the wrong spot, moving a little too quickly, there's a gentle correction through action, not humiliation. An item is quietly repositioned. A rug edge is smoothed. A strap is retied. You learn by watching, and you're allowed to learn without being made into a story. Outside, the canyon wind changes. You hear it thread through the narrow corridors and soften again in wider pockets, like the place is breathing in sections. The traders respond with tiny adjustments. Bundles pulled deeper into shade, light sheltered even more, cloth edges tucked in. Their awareness is constant, but not anxious. It's the difference between vigilance and panic, and you feel your own body choosing the first one. You think of the day's lessons in a chain: water as wealth, cloth as shade, movement as economy, knots as truth, scent as distance. Now you add one more: community as survival. In the world you come from, independence is marketed like a personality trait. Out here, independence is just another way to become lost. What keeps you safe is a network of quiet agreements: how to accept, how to refuse without insult, how to return care through steadiness and restraint. You begin to understand that being welcomed isn't a random kindness. It's an invitation into a disciplined way of living. Your eyelids sink, heavy and gentle. The cave is cool. The rugs hold your weight. The low light keeps the darkness from feeling sharp. You're still you, still tired, still human, still carrying whatever day you had before this canyon. But now you're inside something older than your worry. And for a moment, you belong, not by claiming it, but by learning how to fit. Dawn doesn't slam into the canyon. It seeps in, thin light sliding along the rock face, turning last night's purple into a muted blush, then into that familiar rose-red glow that makes you wonder if the stone is secretly alive and just pretending to be geology. You wake in layers. First the chill at your fingertips, then the weight of cloth over your shoulders, then the steady warmth in your belly from the simple meal. Your breath comes slow, not panicked. Your body remembers the rules now. Don't waste water, don't waste motion, don't waste calm. Even waking has a measured pace, like the canyon has trained you to stop flinging yourself into the day like a dropped bag. The cave is quiet, but not asleep. You sense movement in the way you sense wind, soft shifts, a rug edge lifted. a strap checked by hand. The traders rise without drama. No stretching theatrics, no groaning performance, just bodies moving into function, as if the morning is a familiar tool they pick up and use well. Outside the cave mouth, the canyon floor looks newly combed by night air. Sand patterns hold delicate lines. Pebbles sit where they fell, innocent looking, like they've never rolled an ankle in their lives. The sky above the narrow slit of canyon is pale and clean, and the first warmth hasn't reached your skin yet. It's the best kind of hour, cool enough to move, calm enough to think. You sit up slowly, keeping your limbs tidy, remembering that space is shared and shelter is precious. Your cloth shade shifts with you, and you tuck it back into place with the small, careful motions you've learned, like you're smoothing a page instead of yanking at it. The morning routine begins. Bundles are brought forward into the edge of light. Ropes are checked. Knots are pressed and tested. Pack frames are set out. A water skin is lifted, weighed by feel, then returned to shade. Each action fits into the next like a practiced sequence. It's almost soothing to watch, like your mind loves the order because your usual life is basically a pile of notifications pretending to be a schedule. And then something changes. Not a shout. There is no shout. Not even a sudden clatter. It's a pause, barely visible, but your body catches it the way it catches a draft, a subtle shift in the air. Someone reaches for a particular place among the bundles, where something should be, where something always is, and their hand meets empty cloth instead of the familiar weight. They freeze for half a heartbeat. Another person's eyes lift immediately, not alarmed, just alert. A third turns their head toward the shaded corner where valuables are usually tucked deeper. The cave feels slightly smaller. Your own mind tries to leap into modern panic habits. Did someone steal? Did you do something wrong? Is this the part where everything falls apart and you become an unfortunate footnote? But you watch their faces and realize panic isn't invited here. Panic is a wasteful guest, and no one is letting it take a seat on the rug. Inventory happens without words. Bundles are checked in a calm sweep. Cloth layers are lifted and replaced. Rope ties are inspected with fingertips that read tension like language. The traders move with quiet speed. The speed of competence, not fear. Their focus sharpens, but their breathing stays steady. You remember the small, carefully wrapped bundle you noticed near the scented goods, the one set deeper into shade, the one your curiosity had politely avoided. Your stomach tightens, not with hunger this time, but with the awareness that something precious has weight beyond itself. Out here, a missing thing isn't just loss, it's imbalance. It's risk. It's the kind of problem that can drag other problems behind it like a string of tin cans. Hands signal. A palm held low slows movement, so nothing is overturned in haste. Two fingers flick toward the cave entrance. Check the threshold. A small tilt of the head sends someone to the animals. Inspect pack frames, straps, anything that could hide or carry a bundle away. Another person crouches near the rug edge and inspects the sand as if it's a document. You notice how the light catches tiny disturbances, a scuff mark, a dragged line, and indentation where something heavy once sat. You try to make yourself useful without inserting your ego. Your eyes scan the cave floor and the shaded corners, looking for anything out of place, a strip of cloth that doesn't match, a knot tied differently, a container moved a half hand's width away. You remember the lesson of boundaries. Don't grab, don't touch what isn't yours. So you keep your hands close and let your attention do the work. The calm, though, doesn't mean softness. There's a hard clarity in the way the group adjusts. A rope knot is found slightly altered, still holding, still neat, but not the original hand. That detail lands like a cold pebble in your chest, not because it's loud, but because it's precise. Someone did this deliberately. Someone knew enough to move quietly. Someone understood the rules well enough to bend them. The traders don't waste time assigning blame. There's no dramatic suspicion thrown at you to make you feel like a criminal for having the audacity to be present. Instead, the system tightens. Valuable bundles are gathered deeper into shade. The animals are checked again. Water is secured. The sheltered light is made even less visible from outside. The cave becomes a locked fist, but still a calm one. Then the focus turns outward. A few of them step to the cave mouth and look down the canyon floor where dawnlight is spreading. Their eyes follow the sand patterns the way you followed stars last night, searching for what's consistent, what's wrong, what doesn't belong. The wind has been gentle, which is both blessing and threat. Gentle wind preserves tracks. Gentle wind also means anyone moving before sunrise could leave a story behind them. You feel your cloth shade settle heavier on your shoulders as you rise. Your heart wants to hurry, but you choose the learned pace, slow enough to stay useful, steady enough to stay safe. You take a small sip of water, not because you're thirsty, but because you know the day is about to spend you. You swallow carefully, respecting the portion, respecting the math of survival. The traders begin to move, not in a chaotic rush, but in a clean, organized flow out of the cave and into the canyon's pinkening light. You step with them, mindful of your feet, mindful of sand, mindful of the quiet urgency that now threads through the morning like a tightened rope. The rose-red walls brighten around you, beautiful and indifferent as ever, and you realize the canyon's lesson is continuing. Welcome is real, but so are consequences. And now at dawn, something valuable is missing. You move into the canyon as if you're stepping onto a page that can be smudged by the wrong touch. Dawn light is still low and slanted, generous in the way it reveals tiny disturbances, every scuff mark, every dragged line, every faint compression in sand that a higher sun would flatten into nothing. The traders spread out without looking scattered. It's a pattern you recognize now, organized calm, like ropes laid straight before a load is lifted. No one charges ahead, no one churns the ground into useless noise. They move the way you learned to move yesterday, measured, economical, leaving the canyon as intact as possible so it can tell the truth. You stay a half step behind the nearest line of attention, careful not to trample what they're reading. Your instincts want to help by doing something big, something dramatic, your modern brain's favorite coping strategy, but you swallow that urge like you swallowed water, slow, controlled, respectful. Out here, helpful means accurate. The first clues are almost insulting in their subtlety. A shallow indentation near a rock edge where the sand is smoother. A faint toe drag where someone stepped too close to the wall to avoid open light. A thin scrape line where a bundle corner might have kissed the ground. You would miss all of it on a normal day. You would step right over it and then complain that there were no signs. The canyon would roll its ancient eyes. Someone kneels near the ground and tilts their head, letting the light rake across the sand at a low angle. You copy the posture, and suddenly the surface becomes textured, full of information. The desert floor isn't empty, it's a canvas. Tiny pebbles cast tiny shadows. Fine grains show direction. Even the wind's last brushwork is visible if you look the way the land wants you to look. Tracks begin as whispers, a partial print that could be anything, a heel mark that might be old. The trick, you learn, is context. One mark is a guess. A sequence is a sentence. You follow their gaze to a spot where sand meets slick rock, smooth stone polished by time. Here, footprints vanish as if the canyon swallowed them. Your stomach tightens. It would be so easy for a thief to step onto stone and become invisible. But the traders don't look defeated. They look curious, like they've met this trick before and aren't impressed. The canyon hides evidence, yes, but it also betrays movement in other ways. Dust smudges on rock where a hand brushed for balance, a slightly brighter scuff where grit was scraped off the stone surface, a tiny cluster of sand gathered in a crack where a sole shook loose. The absence of tracks becomes its own clue, a deliberate choice, a route selected for concealment. You begin to sense how tracking here is less about prints and more about reading disruptions in the whole environment. A pebble flipped to its lighter underside, a line of disturbed dust on a ledge, a low thorn branch bent the wrong way, catching early light on its scratchy leaves. Even the silence feels shaped, like the canyon is holding its breath around a certain bend. The group moves toward that bend. You keep your cloth shade steady, using it to soften the morning glare as the sun lifts. You move from shadow to shadow, remembering Section 4's lesson about pace and shade as strategy. Your mouth dries anyway, because of course it does, but you don't gulp water to fight it. You take one careful sip and let it do its quiet work. This search isn't a sprint, it's a long, attentive walk through a place that punishes frantic mistakes. The canyon narrows and the air cools in the pinch. Here, sound changes again. Your footfalls feel louder, your breath more present. You become intensely aware of your own body as a potential disturbance. You step lightly, placing your feet the way you practiced, because the last thing you want is to erase a clue with your heel like a careless stamp. Ahead, the sand returns in a shallow drift where rock gives way to a softer pocket. The surface is delicate, almost untouched, and there, barely, are marks that don't belong to the wind's pattern. The lines are too purposeful, too repeated. Not camel prints, not the scattered dance of small animals. Human steps, light but real, angling toward the wall where shade lingers. But the canyon is clever. A gust can soften edges. A shift of sun can hide depth. The traders read what's left, not what's perfect. They focus on the direction, the rhythm, the weight distribution, like they're listening to a melody played on sand. You learn that even imperfect tracks have personality. A person who moves quickly leaves deeper, uneven impressions. A person who moves carefully leaves lighter prints but more frequent balance marks, tiny toe pivots, small pauses where weight was transferred. You think of last night's star slice and how you practiced keeping a reference point. Now the reference is on the ground. This sequence, this angle, this repeated decision to stay close to shade. Whoever moved here knows the same rules you're learning. That's the unsettling part. This wasn't a random wanderer. This was someone who understood desert logic well enough to use it. A new clue appears, small and quietly damning. A thin thread of dyed fabric snagged on a rough stone edge, the color faintly distinct against the canyon's warm tones. Not bright enough to scream, just noticeable if you're looking like someone who has spent a lifetime noticing. It flutters once in the breeze, then stills. Your chest tightens, not with fear, but with that clean certainty that the story is real and close. You don't touch it. You let it be evidence, not souvenir. You simply anchor it in your mind, the way you anchored a star against the cliff edge. The line of movement continues beyond it, deeper into a corridor where slick rock returns and the canyon seems to fold in on itself. The group slows even more now. The calm hardens into focus. Everyone's posture changes, still quiet but ready. You feel it in your own spine. The missing bundle is no longer an abstract loss back in the cave. It's a path on the ground in front of you, a set of choices made by unseen feet, leading into stone shadows. You follow, careful and steady, learning in real time how the canyon tries to erase a traveler, and how patient eyes pull the erased story back into view, grain by grain. The corridor tightens as you follow the faint story in the sand, and the canyon begins to feel like a mind that enjoys riddles. Slick rock rises in smooth sheets where footprints should be, and the trail turns from obvious marks into tiny betrayals. A dust smear where a shoulder brushed stone, a pebble flipped to its pale underside, a thin line where grit has been dragged across a ledge. You keep your steps small and deliberate, because now you understand the cruel comedy of panic, how it convinces you to hurry and then rewards you by erasing the very clues you're trying to chase. Your heart tries to drum up urgency anyway. It loves urgency. Urgency makes it feel important. The canyon, meanwhile, remains beautifully unimpressed. Ahead, the walls open into a shallow pocket where the light changes. The sun has climbed enough to sharpen edges, and the rose-red stone brightens until it feels almost warm to look at. You instinctively want to push faster, as if speed will keep the day from getting hotter. But you remember, speed is just sweat with confidence. Sweat is water leaving your body. Water is wealth. You slow down again. A hand signal stops the group near a low shelf of rock. You freeze with them, half in shade, half in light, cloth shade steady over your head. The air is still enough that you can hear tiny grains skitter now and then, like the canyon is tidying its own floor. You look where they look. At first you see nothing, just stone and a small drift of sand tucked against a crack. Then you notice the drift isn't shaped by wind alone. It has a faint compression along one edge, as if something heavy has been set down and lifted again. A human pause, a brief rest, a decision. Your stomach tightens with the cleanest kind of fear. Not terror, but the sudden understanding that you're close. Close to the missing bundle, close to whoever handled it, close to the point where this calm system could be tested. The group shifts forward in a slow, careful wave. Nobody steps onto the drift. Nobody smears it. They move around it like surgeons around a delicate line. Your body tries to volunteer for heroics. It pictures you lunging forward, grabbing the missing bundle, holding it up like a trophy, becoming the person who saved the day. You almost laugh at yourself. The canyon would absolutely let you do that, right before it punishes your drama with a twisted ankle, a toppled rock, or a trail erased under your own careless feet. So you do the harder thing. You stay still. You let the experienced eyes lead. A narrow gap appears between two stone folds, just wide enough for a person to slip through sideways. The rock here is scuffed in a way that doesn't match natural wear. A faint sheen where hands have pressed, where cloth has rubbed. The dyed thread you noticed earlier seems to have cousins here. Tiny fibers caught on rough edges, like crumbs from a fabric trail that tried to be invisible. Your pulse rises. The space looks like a throat. It swallows light. It promises coolness, but also risk. Your mind offers you a quick, loud plan. Go in fast before the trail cools, before the thief gets away, before something else goes wrong. Then you remember the night sky lesson, how guidance doesn't shout. It sits there patiently, waiting for you to stop sprinting in circles. You take one slow breath. You taste dust. You swallow once gently, because even swallowing too hard feels like wasting water. One of the traders tests the gap the way they test a knot, not trusting appearances, feeling for stability. Fingers touch the rock, then withdraw. A foot presses lightly at the edge, testing grit. A small stone is nudged and watched as it slides, the sound telling you how hollow the space beyond might be. This is not hesitation. This is intelligence. You follow them through. Inside, the temperature drops. The air smells older, cool stone, dry dust, a faint trace of resin that clings to cloth even after distance. The passage widens into a shallow chamber, dim but readable once your eyes adjust. And there, tucked behind a low stack of stones like a secret trying to look natural, sits a bundle wrapped in familiar cloth. Your whole body lights up with relief so sharp it almost hurts. You want to step forward and pull it out immediately. Your hands itch. Your brain chants its favorite modern mantra, "Fix it now, feel better now." But the group doesn't surge. They pause, reading the chamber the way they read sand, looking for what's wrong, not only what's right. The bundle's placement is careful enough to be deliberate, but not careful enough to be final. It feels staged, like someone meant to return, like the canyon has been used as a hiding place, not a grave. A different kind of pressure settles on you now, the pressure to act without thinking. You spot, near the chamber's edge, a shallow smear in dust leading deeper into darkness, a sign of movement, recent and quiet. Your mind immediately writes an ending where you chase it because your mind is addicted to endings. It wants closure the way your throat wanted to gulp water. You feel the choice tighten inside you. Chase the smear alone, fast before it disappears, feed your fear, feed your pride, become the story, or stay, hold the calm, trust the people who have survived this place longer than your entire modern attention span has existed. You choose the second, not because you're brave, but because you're finally listening. You stay near the entrance of the chamber where light and shade meet. You keep your breathing slow. You watch the traders' bodies, how they position themselves so no one is cornered, how they keep the bundle within sight without rushing it, how they scan for other exits, other disturbances, other risks. You realize they aren't only retrieving an object, they're restoring balance. They're making sure the canyon doesn't take more than it already has. A small movement outside catches your eye, a flicker of shadow at the far end of the passage, gone as quickly as it appeared. Your muscles tense, ready to spring. Then you remember how cloth is shade, and shade is strategy. You don't explode into motion. You simply mark it in your mind like you marked a star. There, near that notch, at that angle. Evidence, not impulse. The air shifts. A faint wind threads into the passage, bringing a dry taste and a whisper of grit. It's subtle at first, like a warning spoken under breath. The traders react immediately. Small adjustments, tighter holds, the bundle drawn closer but not yet unwrapped. Their calm sharpens. You feel it too now. The canyon's mood changing. The day's heat is waking, and the wind is beginning to practice its teeth. The wind doesn't announce itself with drama. It tests the canyon first, like a hand testing water temperature. One quiet thread of air slipping through the passage, then another, then a faint, dry breath that tastes of grit. The chamber that felt safely cool a moment ago starts to feel like a funnel. Your cloth shade flutters at the edges, and that small movement is enough to make your body understand what your mind is still trying to deny. Weather here isn't a background detail, it's a decision maker. Fine sand begins to lift from the canyon floor outside the narrow gap, not in a swirling movie scene, but in a thin, persistent haze that crawls along the ground like it has somewhere important to be. The air carries that faint scratchiness that turns every inhale into a tiny argument. Your eyes sting lightly, your lips dry faster. The desert is preparing to sandpaper the world. The traders respond with the same kind of calm you've watched all day, which is honestly irritating in the best way. Your brain wants to sprint, to fix, to finalize, your modern addiction to closure, and their bodies choose the older addiction, survive. Hands tighten straps. The recovered bundle is secured properly this time, wrapped and tied like it will be judged by wind itself. Knots are pressed flat, tested, corrected. Nothing is left with a cute little good enough attitude, because good enough is what breaks at the worst time. You move with them, keeping yourself near the line of safety. Your fingers help where they can, holding cloth steady, passing a strap, keeping the bundle from scraping rock. You remember how friction is an enemy that never looks dramatic until it wins. You keep the cloth between rope and stone. You keep the rope from sawing through itself. You keep your own hands from doing that panicky shake that drops things. As you slip back toward the narrow passage, the air thickens. Sand grains start to click softly against rock, the tiniest percussion section in the world. The sound is delicate but relentless, like the canyon is quietly sharpening its teeth. Light at the gap turns hazy, milked out by dust. You instinctively reach up to secure your cloth shade, tucking edges over your mouth and nose. The fabric becomes a filter, and you feel the difference immediately. Breathing turns from scratchy to merely uncomfortable. Your lungs feel less offended. Your mind, however, still wants to complain. You push that aside. Complaining is just wasted moisture with extra steps. Outside, the wind grows bolder. It slips down the corridor in pulses, grabbing loose sand and flinging it forward, then easing back like it's checking your reaction. You keep your eyes half-lidded to protect them, blinking slowly, refusing to rub, because rubbing gritty eyes is how you turn a manageable problem into a personal tragedy. You learn to look through your lashes like you're watching a delicate secret. The traders keep to shadow lines, as if shadow can protect you from sand. It can't, not fully, but it helps the temperature, and anything that helps matters. They angle their bodies so their backs take the worst of the gusts. They keep the recovered bundle shielded on the downwind side, because the desert loves to steal what isn't guarded. The canyon narrows again, and the wind speeds up. Your cloth snaps lightly. Sand presses against exposed skin in tiny stings. It's not pain exactly, it's irritation made physical, persistence made sharp. You feel grit collecting at the corners of your mouth, on your tongue, in your eyelashes. It's like the desert is trying to become part of you. Your body, naturally, would like to decline. Movement becomes harder now, not because the path changes, but because the air turns dense with particles. The world looks softer, blurred at the edges. The rose-red walls lose their crisp lines and become a muted wash of warm color. You can still sense their beauty, but it's like admiring a painting through a veil. And then you understand the real threat: visibility. A canyon is straightforward when you can see your next step. It becomes a trap when you can't. A wrong turn here isn't inconvenient, it's expensive in water, energy, and time. The traders tighten their formation without fuss. They don't grab hands or create a dramatic chain, but they close distance, keeping each other within the range of peripheral sight. They move like a single organism, each person a vital part, each one aware that separation is the beginning of trouble. You match their pace, small steps, solid footing, breathing steady behind cloth. You feel your heart wanting to race, and you refuse to let it. Racing heart means sweating. Sweating means spending. Spending means losing. The wind spikes, one heavier gust that pushes a sheet of sand through the canyon like a curtain being yanked closed. For a moment, the world turns beige and loud. Sand hisses along rock. Tiny grains rattle against cloth and leather. Your eyes water reflexively, and you keep blinking, slow and stubborn, protecting them the way you protect a water skin, sealed, careful, not wasted. The traders angled toward a side alcove you hadn't noticed before, a shallow refuge carved by time into the canyon wall. It's not a cozy cave like the one you slept in, it's a pocket, just deep enough to break the wind's force, just sheltered enough to breathe without swallowing half the desert. You press into it with them, shoulders turning sideways, bodies fitting into the space like well-packed bundles. The temperature drops slightly in the alcove, and the relief is immediate, but not total. Sand still finds its way in, because sand is arrogant and believes it belongs everywhere. But the sting eases, the hiss dulls, the air becomes breathable again if you're careful. You crouch low, remembering the lesson of space and posture. Low means less wind. Low means less sand in your eyes. You keep your cloth tight over your nose and mouth, letting it dampen your breath and filter the grit. Your hands rest on your knees, palms down, because waving them around would just stir dust into your face. You become very still, the way you were under the stars, only now the sky is hidden behind a moving wall of sand. In the alcove, the recovered bundle is positioned in the safest spot, tucked behind bodies and cloth, sheltered like a flame that must not go out. Straps are checked again because anxiety loves repetition, and competence knows when repetition is warranted. The group adjusts weak points. A rug edge is held firm to block a draft. A loose textile is folded tighter so it doesn't flap and attract sand. Water remains sealed. No heroic drinking. No, I deserve it. The desert doesn't care what you deserve. Time stretches. Not boring time, survival time. The kind of time where you count breaths because counting is calming, and calm is functional. You inhale slowly through cloth, exhale even slower, letting your body accept the fact that you are waiting out weather like you wait out a bad thought, gently, without wrestling it. The wind begins to shift again, not stopping, but changing pitch. The hissing softens in small waves. The sand curtain thins, then thickens, then thins again, like the canyon is reconsidering how hard it wants to punish you today. You keep still. You let the storm do its tantrum. You let patience be your strongest tool. And in that tight, sheltered pocket of rose-red stone, with grit settling slowly and the recovered bundle secured like a heartbeat, you understand something with surprising tenderness. This is what care looks like in a harsh land. Not comfort, not ease, just people protecting the weak points: water, warmth, breath, and each other, until the world becomes walkable again. The wind doesn't end so much as it gets bored. It tapers off in slow, grudging layers. First, the sharp hissing softens. Then the heavier sand curtain thins. Then the air stops trying to force grit into every possible opening like it's collecting rent. You stay low in the alcove until the canyon proves it's done misbehaving. Patience is still the smartest muscle you have. When you finally ease back toward the canyon corridor, the world looks freshly scrubbed in a rough desert way. Fine sand has been combed into new ripples. Small stones sit in different places, as if the ground rearranged itself while you weren't looking. The rose-red walls glow again under a higher sun, their color steadier now, less delicate than at dawn. Warm, confident, ancient. You take your first real breath without cloth filtering it, and it feels strangely clean despite the dust. Your lungs unclench. Your eyes blink away the last sting. Your tongue tastes grit, but you've stopped taking that personally. The desert has manners of its own, and you're learning not to argue. The traders move with a visible shift in energy, not frantic relief, but just readiness returning. The recovered bundle is strapped properly to a pack frame, positioned with the same careful weight logic you learned earlier. Rope crosses in clean lines. Knots sit flat, strong, unshowy. Someone presses the tie points and listens with their fingers. Everything holds. Then comes the quieter part: restoration. They don't just have the bundle back. They reset the system that was disturbed. Valuable items are regrouped, rewrapped, rechecked. The cave and the caravan aren't only physical things, they're agreements. When those agreements are tested, you don't go back to normal by pretending nothing happened. You rebuild trust through order. You notice how they do it without turning it into a humiliation. There's no loud accusation, no public shaming ritual. Suspicion exists, of course it does, but it's handled like a sharp tool, carefully, away from the shared food and shared air. You sense that the missing bundle wasn't only about money or trade, it was about the sanctity of their shelter. A breach in a cave is a breach in belonging. And yet you also sense something else. The event is being put in its place. Not denied, not dramatized, contained. The way they contain firelight, the way they contain water, the way they contain emotion so it doesn't waste what the body needs to survive. As the day steadies, a small act comes your way that feels like a hinge turning. A piece of cloth, thin, sturdy, softly worn, is set near you. Not tossed, not presented like a prize, just placed as if it naturally belongs in your orbit now. It's the kind of cloth you've been using as shade and filter. It carries the canyon's dust and the faint scent of something herbal. You understand immediately. This is not a souvenir for your shelf. This is a tool. A way of saying you handled yourself well. You didn't panic. You didn't grab. You didn't make the crisis about you. You fit into the rhythm instead of trying to rewrite it. You fold the cloth carefully and tuck it close, not like you're hoarding it, but like you're accepting responsibility for it. Then comes the warning, also quiet, also practical, and somehow more powerful because it's not wrapped in drama. You catch it in the way the group adjusts around the cave entrance now, valuables deeper in shade, lines of sight considered, the threshold watched more often. The lesson lands in your bones. Hospitality is real, but it is not naive. Welcome is generous, but it is not blind. The desert isn't the only threat. People can be weathered too. You feel the weight of that without letting it sour you. Instead, you let it sharpen your respect. You think about your earlier curiosity in the market, the little twitch in your fingers, the temptation to touch what looked interesting. You realize how easily curiosity turns into entitlement if it isn't disciplined. You swallow the thought like warm tea, slow and calming, and make yourself a quiet promise to be the kind of person who doesn't make other people tighten their system just because you can't control your impulses. The day moves on. There are small tasks, retying a strap, smoothing sand off a rug, checking a water skin's placement in shade. You help where you can, careful and unobtrusive, and it feels good to be useful in a way that doesn't need recognition. The canyon around you is radiant again. Rose-red walls bright under sun, shadow pockets cool and inviting. The earlier storm has left the air clearer than before, as if it scrubbed away not only dust but a layer of tension too. When you look along the canyon's winding path, it seems both welcoming and stern, like a beautiful guardian who will shelter you, but only if you behave. As the evening approaches, you feel the shift inside yourself. The fear that flared in the morning has settled into something steadier, competence by association. You're not suddenly an expert desert traveler, but you've learned the first rules that matter. Slow down, watch, conserve, respect boundaries, and trust the calm. You keep thinking about how the traders handled the problem, not with panic, not with cruelty, but with tight, practical care. They followed tracks without trampling them. They retrieved the bundle without turning it into a show. They waited out wind without arguing with it. They restored order without poisoning the group with blame. It's a kind of strength that feels almost rare. When the cave's sheltered light comes back on, low and careful, it feels like the day is being folded neatly and put away. You sit near the entrance again, cloth shade resting easy on your shoulders. Stars begin to prick the sky above the canyon slit, and you feel the familiar pull of that quiet night school. But tonight, the lesson is softer. It's about trust earned through restraint. It's about being welcomed and choosing to be worthy of it. It's about the desert teaching you, gently but firmly, that your survival and your peace depend on the small choices you make when no one is watching. And you, for once, are learning to make the quiet ones. You wake before you mean to, not from anxiety this time, but because the canyon has its own alarm clock, a thin blade of light sliding down the cliff and touching the cave mouth like a fingertip. The air is cool enough to feel clean, and for a moment you simply lie there and let your body remember it can exist without bracing. The traders are already moving in that quiet, practiced way. Bundles tightened, straps checked, knots pressed flat with the same calm hands that keep you alive in this place. The recovered bundle sits where it belongs, balanced low and protected by order rather than by hiding. The weak point is wrapped in routine, the way a good blanket closes around your shoulders. You sit up slowly and fold your cloth shade, the one that has become your portable roof and your filter. It smells faintly of dust, rose, and that resin warmth that clings to fibers like a stubborn memory. You tuck it close, not as a trophy, but as a rule you want near your skin. Outside, the canyon wakes into color. Rose-red walls brighten from ember to blush to a soft gold where light lands. Shadows still pool in bends, cool and inviting. And you already understand you will walk by those shadows like you're greeting old friends. The ground is newly patterned by yesterday's wind, rippled and delicate, and you step with the careful softness you've learned since tracks mattered. Departure isn't announced, it simply happens. Rugs are lifted and shaken, sand falling in thin cartons, containers are sealed. The sheltered light is covered and swallowed by darkness. The cave becomes a quiet mouth again, ready to hold whoever comes next with the same stern generosity. You move with the group into the corridor, and the air feels different from your first arrival. On that first arrival, you feel all sharp edges, thirsty, tense, full of hurry you mistake for strength. Now your pace is steadier. Your breath sits lower. Your hands are calmer. You can feel how much water remains in you, and you protect it by not spending it on nonsense. As you walk, the canyon offers you small callbacks, like it knows you're leaving and wants to make sure you don't pretend you learned nothing. A knot on a strap sits perfectly flat, and you can still remember your first clumsy loop and the moment the rope goes quiet when you finally do it right. A pocket of shade cools your face, and you remember how cloth and posture can turn heat into something manageable. A faint trace of spice rides the breeze, and you remember the market's quiet value, everything wrapped, tied, and kept in shade. You glance up at the narrow sky slice and catch the pale leftover of night in your mind, stars pinned against the cliff edge, guidance that never shouts. You listen for wind, too, not because you're paranoid, but because you're finally awake to how information lives in the air. Even the silence feels instructive now, full instead of empty. The path widens and sunlight reaches deeper, warming your shoulders. You sense the moment arriving like a slow exhale, the edge of their route and the beginning of yours. There's no ceremony, no grand farewell, just a natural loosening, the way a hand releases a rope once the load is secure. You stop where a tall wall throws one last generous shadow across the path. The group continues a few steps, then pauses, letting parting happen with dignity instead of drama. You stand there with your cloth folded, your mouth tasting a little dust, your heart steady in a way that surprises you. You look back once at the caves, now small and dark against the rose-red rock. Your mind tries to stamp the moment with a big label, as if that will keep it from fading. But the canyon doesn't do labels. It does layers, it does repetition, it does quiet lessons that change you more than you notice. So you take the only goodbye that fits here. You make it practical. You check your footing. You set your breath. You take one careful sip of water, not too much, not too fast, and you swallow like you're honoring the cost of every drop. You adjust your cloth shade and let its familiar weight settle on your shoulders. You let your posture lengthen, shoulders low, steps small, calm held close. Then you turn toward your own path, carrying more than a cloth and a memory. You carry the desert's simple arithmetic, Move slowly. Rest wisely. Guard your weak points. Respect boundaries. And never confuse rushing with living. The rose-red walls watch you go, beautiful and indifferent, yet you feel oddly, tenderly, like you've been looked after. Not with words, with shade, with water, with order, with patience. And as the canyon light warms your skin and your steps find their rhythm, you leave the caves behind without losing what they give you, the way you leave a good dream behind without losing the calm it leaves in your chest. You keep walking, but the canyon's grip loosens the way a hand relaxes when it finally trusts you. Behind you, the cave mouth shrinks into shadow, and then into nothing more than a darker fold in rose-red stone. Ahead the path is simple. Sand, rock, a ribbon of shade, a patch of sun, and your own steady breathing, slow enough to soothe your heart, steady enough to carry you. Let your shoulders drop again. Let your tongue rest against your teeth. Let your eyes soften, half smiling at the thought that you come here full of hurry, and the desert trains you out of it without ever raising its voice. You can almost feel the cloth on your shoulders, light and familiar, and the quiet lesson it holds. Cover what is tender, protect what is precious, and never waste yourself trying to impress a place older than ego. Picture the canyon walls glowing like warm clay at sunrise, then cooling into deeper colors as evening returns. Picture the small pockets of shade where you learn to pause. Picture the careful knots, the measured water, the low, safe light, and the calm hands that keep the day from breaking. Let all of that settle into you like a gentle weight, not heavy, just comforting, like a blanket that knows exactly where you get cold. Now let the image fade, as if sand is smoothing the edges of a drawing. The wind becomes softer, the footsteps become quieter, the canyon becomes a distant memory, beautiful and patient, and you are here, safe in your room, safe in your bed, breathing slow, drifting down. Sleep comes in its time. Close your eyes fully now. Inhale and exhale. You're doing fine. You're allowed to rest. Good night. Just a quiet whisper, and then nothing at all. End of story. Sweet dreams.